comrades. I hope you're doing well. Sorry, there's a lot of noise over here. Let me move. Let me move away from the noise. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, this is Kenyan Revolutionary. I hope you're doing well, whatever you want. For another session, we're about to talk about some things. Uh, now, there's something I want to touch on today. Something very, 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 very interesting. But before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to get this, if you're getting this notification and you're going to join or you're planning on joining on this live to watch it, I won't be here long, but I would ask you to please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all this stuff, okay? All the good stuff, all right? Kama kawaida, ama namna gani? Now, I had a feedback from one of the listeners and told me that, hey, I take a lot of I take a lot of time before getting to the to the mada, as they say it, okay, to the subject, the topic of the day. But I have to greet everyone, okay? So guys, come on, make your way in here. So before we get started, all right? We're about to officially start. I won't take much of your time, so please, if you're going to watch this and repeat again, make sure you hit the like button. That's the first order of business, is to do what? Like the video and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like, share, comment, and do all the good stuff. Now, the topic of the day is kind of a question. Is the Kenyatta family behind Ruto's political woes? Are they behind Ruto's misfortune, unpopularity, the disdain that he's been treated with? Okay, are they behind it? Okay, this topic is really informed by something that I had. Is it Nduruige? That apostle, I forgot his name. Nduruige or something like that. I forgot. He was an ex-Mungiki guy. He was heavily involved in the Mungiki some years back, and he allegedly turned his life behind, and he's a pastor. He's an apostle, as he calls himself. And he's really active politically, at least, you know, he's he frequents all this Kikuyu radio talk shows, you know, talks about the politics, whether it's Raila or wherever the case is, what's happening, Ruto, Kenyatta's. And I was very, you know, I paid attention when he was saying something about, he was in one of those podcasts. I think it's Ikonini podcast or something like that. If you want to watch a clip of that, what I'm talking about, you can go to my X or Twitter handle, which is Kenya Revolutionary. Go see it. Just scroll down, you'll see who I'm talking about. Apostle Nduruige or something like that. Okay, that's his name. I don't know. Okay, I forgot his name. Okay, but anyway, so what this guy alluded to, he said that Ruto is being, you know, the Kenyatta family having a lot of money. They have been, you know, paying people, including Raila Odinga, of course, to, you know, make Ruto's life miserable as a president, because Ruto ran on a mission, on a platform, basically, saying that people like the Kenyatta family and Moi family, basically against the dynasties, and that he will, you know, make sure that he deals with the Kenyatta families and the Moi families, the dynastical families that we have in Kenya. But most importantly, the Kenyattas were the targeted, you know, family that was being targeted by this administration when they came to power. Remember the Tanga people, when they were walking around saying, "Oh, I do whatever." You get the drift, right? So basically, his argument is that all these shenanigans with Gen Zs, with the Mandamano, with Raila, even all these handshake talks, the BBI, broad base, his argument is the Kenyatas actually are, Uhuru is behind this. They are Kenyatas to be exact. They are funding, they are mobilizing people to make life hell for Ruto, because Ruto dared to mess with their interests. In fact, I think they're doing that, according to him, again, he says, because Ruto is kind of not, he's threatening their business interests. That's what he says, okay? Now, on the surface level, you can say, this is a guy who, he might not know much, or maybe he's just talking out of his ass. But I think there's some level of truth, some modicum of truth in this, okay? Because let's review. Let me take you back. I told you guys, as I usually tell you here, that I posed this question and I've never really had a satisfactory answer. I asked people, who is really behind the Gen Z movement? Who is really funding this movement, okay? And the answers I get are kind of vague, all right? But that's not where I'm going with this, okay? What I want to take you back is this. I want to take you back to, there's a video I made a few months ago, probably 6 months ago, that had to do with the involvement of generals, okay? Army generals, military generals, being involved in the Kenyan elections, okay? This was around after Ogola died, remember that? And I brought up this old video of, rest in peace, Martin Ngatia, of the Red Alliance movement. If you know this, if you guys been on this YouTube streets, you know, of course, Kenyan politics. And if you type in Red Alliance, Kenyan Red Alliance, this guy used to make videos about, politics and how we can, the Red Alliance was a movement, a party actually. I think the guy was from, he lived in Scandinavia somewhere, but he's originally from, Mount Kenya. He moved out because he moved to Scandinavian country, one of the countries there, I forgot which one, Switzerland or whatever the case is. But he moved there because Moi was going after him. He used to be in the Air Force, okay? So he moved there because Moi was targeting him because he was a political hothead, okay? So he moved to Scandinavia, and he was very, very vocal against the Kenyatta family. And I didn't know till like mid last year, when I found out that, first I found out that his wife passed away, but he made a couple of videos after that. He was really, really talking and exposing the Uhuru family, how they're involved in Kenyan politics, how they use military generals to determine who wins the elections, okay? But unfortunately, this guy passed on a few years ago. I don't know what year exactly, but I was wondering what happened to him, what happened to his Facebook page. He just stopped, but I want to give him a rebel salute, whatever he is, or anyone who's associated to Martin Ngatia. Please go to YouTube and type Martin, like Martin, then the last name Ngatia, Ngatia. This guy was very vocal. He was going after Kibaki's corrupt government. He was very vocal about Jubilee and TNA, and when Ruto came to power, he was very vocal about their corrupt deals. And most importantly, like I say, I've never seen someone speak so vehemently and fearlessly against corruption, the corrupt system in Kenya, especially the Mount Kenya politics, and according to him, what he labeled as the Kikuyu elites, the people from Mount Kenya who are who are pretending to be part of Mau Mau, who are pretending to be freedom fighters, who are pretending to be the heroes, but are actually the home guards who are taking advantage. He named Kibaki, he named Kenyatta, Uhuru, his father Jomo, Mama Nge. You go check it out. It's still on the old YouTube files. Go find it. Type Martin Ngatia, and you'll see all his videos there. He was a fearless comrade. So rebel salute to him. Rest in peace. Unfortunately, when I heard about his death, I was really disappointed. I was sad. I never got a chance to meet him or anything like that. But anyway, back to the topic. Like I said, I made a video 6 months ago. It was about the involvement of military generals in Kenyan general elections, okay? And that's why I mentioned, I highlighted, I questioned what was General Ogola, who was apparently was in the scene at the Bomas when the results of the elections were to be made. Of course, we know later on General Ogola, patched it up with Ruto, and he joined. He was actually promoted by Ruto. Okay, just a day or two after Miguna made a tweet that said those days Miguna was still, you know, supporting the government, supporting the Ruto's regime. It was still nobody, you know, he still, you know, he thought Ruto maybe might have been different. But after tweeting that Ruto needs to make change, you know, kind of restructure, or not restructure, but, you know, move the military men around to make sure that he has his men, trusted men in the military, to make sure that there's no possibility of any coup d'etat. So 2 days after Miguna made that tweet, that's when Ruto named General Ogola to be the head of whatever. You know, he promoted him to be a general of whatever the case is, okay? So anyway, but the point I'm getting at is this, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, is that in that video, he mentioned how the Kenyatta family, led by Uhuru, used these Kikuyu generals, okay? Most trusted business partners who happen to be of the same tribe from Mount Kenya region, who are Kikuyu generals, to make sure that that election goes how they wanted, how they planned, okay? That's basically the gist of it. Go check out Martin Gatti again. Type it on your YouTube. You'll see there's videos up there. Just type, you know, Martin Gatia generals in Kenyan elections, okay? And you'll find those videos, okay? But anyway, so now I want to connect the dots. Like I told you, I'm your political dietitian. I will give you the nutrients that you want, so you can connect the dots too and see if there's any truth to what this apostle Ndiru Nduruige or something, I think that's his name, who said that all these shenanigans that are happening in Kenya, all this drama, all this revolt. Now, don't get me wrong. Hold on, let me drink this water a little bit. Oh, that water, it's hot, kind of. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that people are not angry with Ruto's regime because of the things that are happening. But you have to ask yourself this. You know, I kept on asking myself this too. Ruto is not doing anything different from what Uhuru Kenyatta was doing in the last 10 years when Kenyatta was in charge. Okay? I always argue that Ruto is an extension of Kenyatta's regime. Okay? There's no difference if you're talking about extrajudicial killings, corruption, tribalism, nepotism, you name it. It's all an extension of Uhuru Kenyatta's regime. The borrowing, all of that, okay? But during Uhuru Ruto's regime, the past 10 years, when Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, we never saw this kind of revolt from the Wananchi. There was not so many, there was Mandamano, yes, before the handshake, of course, but during the course of his regime, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, despite the theft of public money, okay, despite all the atrocities that he committed, the plunging of the economy, the pillaging of the resources for personal use, we never saw this kind of revolts, okay? And I asked myself, why is that? Why is that? What was the difference? Why is it that, you know, Kenyatta did the same thing, Uhuru Kenyatta did the same thing that Ruto is doing, and there was not so much outrage as when Uhuru was doing it? What's the difference? What changed? All of a sudden, Kenyans wamerevuka, wakasema, okay, let's just start revolting against Ruto because he's worse than Kenyatta. What was the difference? What happened? Why is all of a sudden Ruto ndio ameingiliwa sana? Now mapresident wengine walikuwa nasema wanafanya the same thing. What happened? That's the question that I actually asked. Then when you know, this video kind of caught my attention, he mentioned something, as this guy said, that, and I also take you back to that, the beginning of Ruto's rule, okay? No, let me not say rule. Well, he's ruling because he's not governing. When he became the president of Kenya, the first few months, the first 6 months, 1 year, He was butting heads with Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember that story of Uhuru having guns, his sons having guns, and people were. Then there was a member of the Ruto's regime suggesting that the Kenyattas need to pay their portion of tax to help out Kenyans. Okay, and immediately he said that that Sunday, Mama Ngina was attending a church in Nairobi with Jimmy Wanjigi. And I remember Jimmy Wanjigi was speaking on that church and said that ukianza kuguza mambo ya Mama Ngina, you're playing with a live wire. Okay? You're playing with a live wire. Then after that, Eden Duale, who was, I think, the CS for Eternal Security or whatever the case is, whatever that Cheo Matiang'i used to hold, he was on Spice FM or one of the radio talk shows and said unequivocally that he had evidence, okay, undisputable evidence that it was the Kenyatta family who are behind the maandamano that was being sponsored. The maandamano which the ODM, remember zile walikuwa na beba sufuria na wakina Kioni, wakina Sifuna were putting sufurias in their head. Remember on Mondays and Thursdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesdays and Friday, whatever the case is. Remember those ODM Ninio, those ODM maandamanos? Eden Duale came and said that he receives intelligence he said that, okay. He said that he received intelligence sitting as the CS or whatever of internal security or whatever the case is. He receives intelligence that points a finger that is very clear. It was clear to him that the Uhuru Kenyatta, the Kenyatta family, were behind the funding, the bankrolling of the maandamano that was happening with the what? With the ODM Azimio folks. You remember when Martha Karua and Raila were jumping around talking about Garama Maisha, and Martha Karua was telling us that he's going to East Africa and Supreme Court, whatever. All that's nonsense, okay? It was being bankrolled by the Kenyatta family. That's what Eden Duale said. So it cannot be a coincidence that Ndiru Nduruige, whatever his name is, Apostle, who was an ex-Mungiki guy who is now Apostle, says that these all things are being Uhuru and the Kenyatta family are funding all this drama that's happening, okay? And it's a response to Ruto. For him, Ruto seems to be getting off the script. Now, I've been saying this, listen to me. I've been saying this. There's a hierarchical ladder. There's a hierarchy within these political elites, okay? There's a hierarchy even within the political elites of Kenya. Listen to me very carefully. There's Wakina Raila, the general names, Raila, Ruto, the Kibakis, rest in peace, Kalonzo, those are the guys. Those are the main protagonists in this whole political drama, okay? But here's the thing, the powers behind it, the chief, their chaperone, the people who are safeguarding the interest of the West are people like the Moi family, the Kenyatta family. Remember, there's a law in place in Kenya. Even today, as of today, if you go, I think it's called something estate duty, whatever, something, duty estate law, which basically spells out the name of Moi and Kenyatta, that any land that they own, they cannot pay tax on it. Go Google it. A simple Google will do you a lot of good. These two families, Moi and Kenyatta, the law actually spells out their name that they cannot be taxed on their land. Okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is this. It does make sense. It does make sense. I've been very, very suspicious with all this mandamano that has been happening. Majority of you are saying, you know, when the Azimio folks were going to mandamano and they were doing all their mandamano and stuff, and it seemed like Raila could not get enough people to go to the streets because the majority of people had a sense that Raila Odinga had lost fair and square. Not only that, majority of Kenyans felt like Raila Odinga, this was like his 5th time and he was singing the same song. And they were tired of this idea of after every election, you go to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court rules against you, we go to the streets, we die for no reason, then there's a handshake. So majority of people were not really looking forward to go to these mandamanos. That's why these ODM Azimio mandamano were not picking up steam, if you can remember. That's why Raila Odinga had to go and reach out to Maina Njenga. Because at that time, the mandamano was only happening in what? Nairobi, some parts of Nairobi, they were trying to go to CBD, of course, to make it a huge thing, all right? So it can capture the news, but it was only limited to some parts of Nairobi and some parts of Nyanza province. Even Nyanza province, Luo Nyanza, because even Luo Nyanza wasn't even all over Nyanza, okay? It wasn't catching that steam. Ilikuwa tu hapo maybe Kikondele, then some parts of Siaya County, but not really Nyo. So Raila had to reach out to Maina Njenga. Remember Maina Njenga? Now, if you know the history of Maina Njenga, he's a very close lieutenant of Uhuru Kenyatta. He is the handyman, mtu wa mkono. If Uhuru Kenyatta wants to do some dirt, that's the guy he turns to, okay? Remember, Kambo, when he was unraveling those witnesses, when they were talking, they were saying that Uhuru Kenyatta met Maina Njenga at the State House during Kibaki in 2007 and handed cash and weapons. And that's when Maina Njenga went and gave his Mungiki, and they unleashed terror on non-Kikuyu residents who are living in Naivasha. Remember that. So Maina Njenga is a known right-hand man thug for Uhuru Kenyatta. So I was asking myself at the time, I was like, why would Raila Odinga, okay, who was perceived to be vehemently opposed, diametrically opposed politically with Maina Njenga, they can't see eye to eye. These guys on different political trajectory or whatever, position. This is the guy who killed your supporters. This is the guy who kills your own tribesmen. Why would you join hands with Maina Njenga? Now it makes sense, because the bosses, who are the Kenyatta family, listen, there's no powerful family in Kenya more than the Kenyatta family. I'll tell you that straight up right now. The Kenyatta family is the most powerful family in Kenya. They're like the Saudis of the House of Saud family in in Saudi Arabia. Let me just tell you right now, okay? So this is why it makes sense. Now, listen to me. Look at the history of the Kenyatta family. Let's start with Jomo. We know Jomo was living in England working as a whatever, meta reader, or whatever the case is. This guy was not in jail. He was a groomed MI6 agent who was left to take care, look after the interest of the British Empire. That's why he was very close to that Governor MacDonald, I think that's his name, the British Emperor. That's the British governor. Okay, very close to Jomo Kenyatta. So the Kenyatta family were basically given, let me just say, through Jomo, okay, they were given this sort of like the same thing Mobutu in Congo. Okay, they were given this job to make sure that the interests of the British will stay intact. In return, they can always get their way. If they want a business, if they want land, if they want whatever, they can do that with the backing of the British government. Because the Brits are the ones who had the cash. The Brits also had the what? The guns. Remember, you can only rule unopposed if you have guns and cash, and that's exactly what he had. He had an army, he had a police force, okay, that were trained and financed by the British, and it was given to him. Okay, of course, Jaramogi Odinga punked out because he was scared of the responsibility by the Brits, so he had to leave it to Jomo Kenyatta. Okay, so anyway, so Kenyatta did what he did and became who he was, and he built an empire, a business empire. Hi, Pritika Kaur, hi, Mariam. So you see what I'm saying? So that's how the Kenyatta built up their empire. Now they're the most richest, they are the richest family in Kenya. They own land, more than 5,000 acres of land. We know that. Go to TGR report, whatever, TGRC report, and all the reports that are there in Kenya. This is not a secret, okay? So it will make sense for them using the money and influence that they have to influence the politics of the day in order to maintain not only their business interests, but the interests of the West. Now, I'll give you an example. Ask yourself this. Remember before Ruto went to meet Ruto went to meet Kenyatta in Ishaweri? Remember that? What preceded that? The American ambassador and the British ambassador at the time, the interim ambassador, whatever the case is, after Nani Alitoka, after Meg Whitman left, the guy who's up there, I don't know what's his name, okay? But there was a council. Ruto is competing with the Kenyattas. He's grabbing Shamba, Kila Mahali, Mr. Arab Shamba, absolutely. So there was a delegation, including the acting ambassador, US ambassador to Kenya, who went and visited Uhuru Kenyatta at his Ishaweri home. Now, ask yourself this, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies and comrades. Why would, for example, why would an ambassador, a current ambassador of the US, visit an ex-president who is not in charge of anything, does not hold a public office anymore? I never saw Meg Whitman go visit Kibaki. I never saw Meg Whitman visit Moi. I never saw Meg Whitman visit any of the former presidents in their homes, not them coming to him. It would be a different thing if Uhuru Kenyatta went to Meg Whitman's ambassador, Apokwa embassy to see Meg Whitman. It will be a different thing if Uhuru went to the American embassy to visit Meg Whitman. It was the American delegation, the acting ambassador at the time, and a delegation of a couple of diplomats that were representative of the American government, went down to Ishaweri at Uhuru's house, residence, a week before Ruto went and visited Uhuru at the same spot at Ishaweri. Are you connecting the dots? 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 I hope you are. Now, what I'm trying to say is this, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies and comrades. What might have been happening and what is happening right now, what I suspect is happening, is it could be that Ruto has crossed the Kenyattas in some type of way. He has crossed the Kenyattas in some type of way. Like Shimariam was telling me on the comment section that Ruto is trying to be as rich as the Kenyattas. Okay? He's saying Ruto na grab shamba hapa, na grab biashara. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I know he's corrupt, yes. But I think, in my opinion, I think Ruto, being a very, very ambitious, rapacious criminal who has unquenchable thirst for power, he did his abracadabra and found himself to be the president of the Republic of Kenya. And once he became the head of the state of this republic, he is using every instrument of power, okay, to amass wealth. And maybe he got to a position where he thinks, you know what? I can go against the grain. I can stand up against the Kenyattas. I can stand up against the Brits and the Americans. I suspect this man has probably messed up and is at odds with the Kenyattas. It makes sense. That's why I go back to the question I asked last time. I was in another platform and I asked this question. You cannot tell me that Raila Odinga as a person stopped the Gen Zs from continuing with their their protests. If they really wanted to take out Ruto, they could have continued, even if Raila joined Ruto, they would have taken out Ruto and taken out Raila with him. Okay? But remember, Raila had no numbers. He didn't have enough protesters. He did all the the gathering of people, or whatever the case is, okay, and brought them to Nairobi, and those protests were not successful up until he brought Mainanjega to the fold. Now, again, I go up to the question, who is behind the funding of Gen Z? Who is behind the funding of Gen Z? Listen, a lot of Kenyans make a mistake of thinking that Raila Odinga is the only one who can mobilize people to go to the streets to protest and affect the government of the day. That's the mistake we always make. Just because Raila Odinga has always done that as his modus operandi does not mean that he's the only one who can mobilize people, youth, to go to the streets and protest. Look at the political hotspots right now in Kenya. Which part of the country do you think anytime can erupt in protests against this government? Look at Nairobi. Look at Kisii. We saw that with Raila Odinga. Don't even dare try Central Province. What I'm trying to say in not so many words is this. The Kenyattas have deep pockets, and they have the connection, and they have the money. Militarily, they have generals who have deep understanding, business dealings, even within the current military. Okay? So if it's a matter of removing Ruto, they can take him out. But they have to try to take him out in what seems to be a democratic way of taking him out, through Mandamano. They have to show the world that the people have rejected William Samoei Ruto first by constantly financing these useful idiots like Martha Karua, Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, Fred Matiang'i, Jeremiah Kioni, Eugene Wamalwa. All these stupid, useful idiots are paid to cause ruckus for the international community to get a glimpse of what seems to be Kenyans rejecting their corrupt president. Yes, indeed, I told you, what is the difference between Uhuru Kenyatta's regime and Ruto's regime? Zilch. None. Nada. There's nothing different from the two. They're doing exactly the same things. But it seems like this regime is catching slack for their misgivings or mismanagement of this country. Why didn't the Gen Zs stand up to Uhuru Kenyatta during the last 10 years? The only person who enjoyed majority of the support of the Kenyan people was Raila Odinga up to 2017, where he showed and exposed himself to be a political wheeler dealer, a con man par excellence, a gluttonous thug, an octogenarian who does not have the national interest in his heart, but his stomach. So that's why I ask you again, if there's no difference between Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta's regime, why is it that it seems to be that we have this group of youth who we label as Gen Z or Gen Zote, who are very, very active, who cannot stand this government 2 years into power, and they're already ready to take him out, unlike Uhuru, who survived 10 years. But I can rarely remember if there was any Kenyan who went out to protest because of the conditions, economic conditions, poor economic conditions. But all of a sudden, now that Ruto gets into power and targets the Kenyatta's interests, okay, business interest, and this same Ruto is trying to compete with the Kenyattas as to who can steal more, who can have more streams of income, who can loot more public resources from Kenyans, who can be a more powerful force politically in Kenya. And that's rubbed Mama Ngina and his corrupt family enterprise the wrong way. So she had to dig deep in her already deep pockets to conjure up some evil plan, a plan that was kind of choreographed in the depths of hell where Lucifer resides. They came up with a plan to make sure that Ruto has no peace in his years as the president of Kenya. That's why you see everywhere he goes, he is being booed. I remember Ruto. I remember Uhuru Kenyatta when he was a president. As much as majority of Kenyans loathed him because of his brutal way of rule, and he used to verbally abuse governors and the citizens, showing up in public drunk. Never did I see people protest whenever he went to a public forum. Never did you see anyone try to heckle him whenever he went to a public forum. Never did I see this level of disdain by the public. It is simply because somebody is behind it. Now you hear rumors of even some other bloggers saying that. The word is Ruto is to be removed before April. And if it is not through a civilian coup d'etat, then they shall turn to the military to do the job. Who do you think have the connections with the military? I told you about Martin Gatia, who exposed and named the generals who were involved. Most of them were business partners with the Kenyatta family. They seem to have come from the same village, the same Mount Kenya, the same language they speak, the same business partner. This is not to say or to cast aspersions to the people of Mount Kenya. The people of Mount Kenya are brave just like any other people, and they want change for the whole Kenya. But let's face it, the political elites that stem from Mount Kenya are just as powerful and able to actually paralyze any government of the day, because if you're not informed, ladies and gentlemen, majority of the business people, the big business tycoons, whether they made their money legally or not, they have the money, they have the power, and they have the connections. So if they want to make your life miserable as a president of Kenya, they are more than able to do so. Like I said, they have the connection in the Kenyan military. That's why I'm saying in my conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades, this fight against Ruto is not just a single-pronged fight. While we, the majority of the people, are celebrating that Ruto is being exposed for his lies, is being addressed for his corrupt dealings, he's being told in his face, heckled in public, but the truth is, there's a more sinister power behind it, a darker hand, that its interest is not of the majorities of Kenyans' interest. It is the interest of the Kenyatta family, who have been feel threatened by this president, by his actions of looting, atrocities, and most of all, messing up their business interest. And you know, business gets to determine everything. The economics. If to mess up with your livelihood, I pose the greatest threat to you. So you have to do something. And that's why I raise these questions. Think about it. Why did Duale, even though he's an imbecile, why did he go to Spice FM and told the Kenyan people that he had irrefutable evidence, being a member of cabinet, being the cabinet secretary for the eternal security? He came across intelligence that suggests, that points a finger to the Kenyatta family being the force, the finances, the check writer, who are bankrolling the maandamano of the Azimio folks, which led us to NADCO. It's not only him that said so. A former Mungiki guy who might know a thing or two about Uhuru Kenyatta. Remember, these guys were the ones who were getting the check from him in order to kill people in Naivasha. Says, now that he's an apostle, he says, all this political chaos that you see in Kenya are being funded by the Kenyatta family. They do have the influence, and they are using their money to destabilize Ruto's rule. And it is I must confess, it is a well thought out plan, because majority of us, we are fighting for the same things, but the truth is we are not. That's why I told you, even within these Gen Zs, majority of them go to the streets thinking that they're fighting for their rights. But at the end of the day, if we ever are able to remove Ruto from power, we shall only realize that the people who are funding this movement, who are sitting in dark corners somewhere, meeting at night, they shall come out of the dark and tell us that, listen, Gen Zs, we appreciate you going out to the streets, losing your lives, but guess what? We were the real force behind it. And so, if this Kenyan pie has to be divided, we get to have the lion's share of it. So while you go out there and you fight Ruto and you fight this political class, you should always be cognizant of the fact I don't trust majority of these people that I see that are fighting Ruto. I don't trust the people who are joining hands with him. To be honest with you, the only thing I trust is a total overhaul of the system, this system. The people who are behind Raila Odinga, the people who are behind Martha Karua, the people who are behind Eugene Wamalwa, the people who are behind Kalonzo Musyoka, the people who are behind Jeremiah Kioni, the people who are behind Fred Matiang'i, the people who pay Natembea. Those are the real colonial stooges that are making sure, safeguarding the interest of the imperial British Empire, which still has a firm grip on the Kenyan Republic. Not even a republic, because Kenya is not a republic. It is only a republic on paper. Kenya is a private company, as Meg Whitman once had a Freudian slip and told the Spice FM that Kenya is a company, and a company it is. Remember the Eastern Company? Kenya is still a company of the Brits. We are only a republic in paper. That's why you see these colonial puppets do not want to change or to implement the Constitution, follow it fully, because if we do follow the Constitution, then we become a republic. But until then, we have this gang of marauding thugs masquerading as heads of states, governors, executive branch, legislative branch, and judiciary, while they rule and loot and run amok, spending our taxpayers. Kihika is in Texas with that fat, ugly bitch from Kisii. I forgot her name. They're having fun in Texas, while the people of Nakuru County are starving, don't even have roads. But here we are talking about how we can save our country. We have to put these people on a guillotine and show them no mercy. Let God have mercy on them once they leave planet Earth. But here on Earth, we have books that we call the law, and guillotine should be part of the solution. Raila Odinga should be the first one on the list. Uhuru Kenyatta, Mama Ngina, Martha Karua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Gachagua. These puppets need to be beheaded and sent to the spirit world, where they meet their fate, which is hell, and burning in eternal fire forever and ever and ever. Amen. I'm done.